Hello, everybody. Happy Sunday. I hope you're all doing well. I'm Angeline, your host, and today we are going to be graced by Precious Melody, one of my very good friends, my destiny helper. And I think that the topic that we are going to discuss today is very crucial today because it's a very difficult time that everyone is going through because of the pandemic, but also other social issues or pressures that we have now had to deal with because of it. So we found it very important for us to talk about suicidal thoughts because, like I said to you guys, I also went through them, but before that, I was very judgmental of the people that were weak enough to get to the point of wanting to take their own lives. But sharing relatable stories around that will help us understand what gets a person to that level. And so I'm very excited for us to be having that talk. To those that are joining us for the first time, I would like to tell you that relatable stories is here to help you cultivate self-love. It's a safe space for you. It's a safe space for you to air your opinions without any judgment. It's a safe space for you to be able to learn from people's stories and be enlightened, and also create the domino effect of enlightening other women in other spaces. So please tune in and be with a comment section. Help us to unpack this really, really complicated issue in our discussion today. So without further ado, I'm going to invite Precious today in the studio. Chipo is here as well. Just wanted you guys to know in the background in case I mention. But yeah, it's going to be a fun time. Precious, welcome to the show. I'm just going to bring you up now. Hi, Precious.
Hi, Angie. How are you doing?
I am great. Welcome to the show. How are you? How's the Sunday going?
Sunday is very easy. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super, super excited.
Not as excited as I am. I've been
No,
I've
but
been
it's
dreaming
good to
of this day
finally
for
connect.
years.
I've been looking forward to being here for the longest time. So I'm super, super excited.
Awesome. I mean, I know you. I know you're amazing, but I just wanted you to tell people. I mean, I've given them your bio and they're already excited. But tell us about Unfitting Fingers for just 2 minutes so that we can get to understand what it is that you do, what it is that drives you. Because I feel like your stories, all of them, are part of the reason why Unfitting Fingers started.
Yeah, yeah. So Unflinching Figures is just a platform that I've created to equip young women so that they can walk in their journeys in their most authentic selves. So I just want them to become the best version of themselves. So I pretty much just do this by sharing my life story. You know how it is when you have had it difficult in certain areas, you don't really want other people to go through the same. So I
Yes.
just share my story, and I also really share about the word of God and how it has helped to transform my life. And yeah, that's pretty much about it in a nutshell.
That is beautiful. That is so beautiful, Precious. I mean your family, because that is exactly what we're trying to do here. We
Yeah,
want we want to cultivate self-love so that we can become the best versions of ourselves by tapping
absolutely.
into our inner power. And we have identified that these relatable stories. We thank you that you're even willing to share with us your private life to
Mhm.
help us um, to help us understand things that we didn't know. I mean, we
Mhm.
don't have to go through the same experiences to learn now. We can learn
So
from
true.
your experience. And
Yeah.
I mean, we just want to thank you for that, for being an uplifting figure. And I'm definitely going to be supporting you forever
You
because
have been. You have been supporting me.
all right. So there's a few people saying hello here. Hey, Chipo, people like you. People confess, Chipo. Apparently, and someone says you're looking great, girl. Thank you so
Oh, thank you
much.
so
Thank you
much.
so
Thank
much.
you so much.
Thank you for being here. So without wasting any more time, let's get into this
Mm,
complex topic: suicidal thoughts.
Oof.
So
Yeah.
I said suicidal thoughts because I wanted to focus more on when we get to that part. But it is definitely an issue around depression and stresses and all of that.
Yeah.
And the reasons why we get stressed or depressed are different. So we can't exactly unpack all of them. But I
Yeah.
think when we get to a point where we consider taking ourselves, our own lives, we are
Yeah.
at the point of sometimes no return, and we want to be
Absolutely.
able to understand how a person gets there and what can be
Yeah.
done before they get there,
Yeah.
So I think in order for us to start that discussion, maybe
Mm.
Precious, you can tell us, why did you want to kill yourself?
Okay, so yo man, so um I think let me just share the whole story, and then you get to the place of why I thought that I needed to end my life. So I'm
Yes.
just going to try and rush through it and mention the important parts of the story.
Okay.
So I wanted to kill myself because I'd been dumped pretty much. This was my first boyfriend, and there was a certain demand that the culture had placed on me. And because this was my first relationship, this was also the relationship where I had been deflowered. And so the conversation in our home had always been, you need to keep yourself until marriage,
Yes.
and you can't. If you don't, the next person will find you, they won't want to have anything to do with you. So I'm
Yes.
in this relationship with this guy, and because I also suffered from some daddy issues, he was pretty much the first person who validated me, who
Mm,
made me feel seen. So I felt that I did not have value on my own. So my value was based on what he saw in me. So the more that he affirmed me, the more that he saw me, the more that I felt wanted and I felt valuable. And now this
mm.
person comes on to say, I don't want to have anything to do with you anymore. And he's not just
Wow.
saying it, he's got somebody that is now replacing me.
Oh
And
God.
I'm like, wow. So what's there to live for? Because I mean, first of all, my mom told me that there's nobody who's going to want to have anything to do with me after I've been deflowered. And I hope that you're going to marry me. And now, and I was so young. Now, when I look at it in retrospect, I'm just like, wow,
Wow.
it's
I mean,
amazing.
I mean,
Yeah,
I think I've picked up two things already. The
yeah,
daddy issues, which was the reason why your idea of love was what the guy was giving you, and you thought
yes,
this was it for you. Also
yes,
based on your society, the way you were brought up, the culture and the
yeah,
values that you instilled in you. You also believed that without this guy, this particular person,
yes,
you can no
yeah, I'm
longer
not
exist.
valuable. Yeah, yes, yes.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, so he pretty much, in fact, I he pretty much told me, okay, listen, I'm gonna be with this person, right? And this
Right.
is me just rushing through the story, and I felt so lost, and I felt that nobody was going to understand. I
Right.
remember that was the most dominant feeling that I was feeling, that no one is going to understand me. I had a sense of shame that okay, so this other person that is now with is obviously better than me, and
Yes.
now I'm now people are going to be mocking me, and because our relationship was sort of out there, and I was also in high school, and now my mom didn't even know that I was dating. Now she's going to know that I was
No,
dating
it's
because I'm
sure.
not okay. So there was just a lot, and I felt like even if I want to talk to anyone about it, they're not
Right.
going to hear me. So I'm going to end my life. So
But
I actually
Precious,
attempted, yeah.
before you go there, did you feel
Yeah.
that you've always wanted to be perfect, to live by the rules? It seems to me that
Mm,
the reasons that put pressure on you were, yes, of course, parents always
mm,
say what they want to their
yeah.
children to behave like, but it
Mm.
seemed like you had a sense of perfectionism that was
Oh
there, like,
yes. Oh yes. Yes. I was like, I really thought that there's this there's this standard that I had to deliver You get it?
Yes.
So I had to
Yes.
be associated with the good stuff. So in as
Right.
much as I had made this mistake, or I had gone this route that I was not supposed to, I was going to make up for it by getting married to this guy. So
Right.
I had to be associated with everything that is good. And when
Mm.
I saw that my plan was not working, that's also what contributed to me having a breakdown.
Why do you think that you had or you have? Because I can relate to that as
Yeah.
well,
Um,
being perfect. But like, I wanted
mm,
to just understand, why do you think that you felt you
mm,
had to live up to this um level of perfectionism? Because
mm,
I feel that is where you
mm,
drew the line. You're like, I cannot be seen as this person. I'm too ashamed
mm,
to show up as a person who has been deflowered against,
mm,
even
mm,
though I was told, I was warned, I knew.
mm.
So now this person has rejected me. There's nothing else for me. Why do you think that you felt you needed to live up to
If I
this
can point
level
it
of
back to
perfection?
anything, I'll point it back to the cultural expectation that is placed on a girl child, especially
Okay.
in our Black community. So, in as much as now in this generation we are sort of shying away from it, but back then, you there was that pressure of you preserving yourself. So
Right.
if you're a virgin, you were perceived to be this girl who's dignified, who has been raised well. So
Right.
now I wasn't that anymore. And I knew that for as long as my secret was going to be out, then I was going to be an outcast in the community. So
Right.
I had that pressure of creating a good perception, because that is what the society expected of me.
So this guy took away your chance of preserving your sainthood.
Exactly.
Because
Yes.
now, if he's not going to marry you, you're going to be
Mm,
deflowered by a person who you're not with. And you just
yes.
couldn't take that.
I
Okay.
just couldn't take that. Yeah.
So take
And
us
also just the
through that.
shame that, and also just the shame of being dumped.
Yeah.
Nobody wants that. So there's a sense of rejection of, I thought I was the one. I thought I was the it. And now you're saying, there's somebody
Not
better.
not you. Not you.
Yeah. If
Yeah.
he's doing it somebody else, pretty much he's saying that there's somebody else who's better than you. And that's what I thought back then.
So when you decided, you got to the
Mm,
point, okay, I've been
mm,
dumped, I've been rejected, and I do
mm,
not want to face my family because now I've dishonored them.
mm,
You wanted to take your own life. Take us
mm.
through how that looked for you. Like, how was that the only option left for yourself?
Okay, so part of it was, okay, my mom was raising us alone, right? And she had done so much for us. And now I was about to put her to shame. So
Right.
I was like, you know what? She's not going to understand. Nobody is going to understand this. So, in order to save them from all this, rather, let me just die.
Okay.
So, yeah. So then I just decided, you know what? I'm gonna go through this, and I'm actually going to see it through. Mm,
I want to talk about that. Do you
mm,
think that it's a no, it's something that you used to do, or something that you have identified a lot of people doing, which is setting expectations
mm,
of their parents or their peers or society even, that
mm,
have not actually been imposed? For example, you
mhm,
said that your mom,
mm.
you believed that your mom would never
Never
understand,
understand. Yeah,
but it's not because she's never understood anyone before.
yeah.
It's
Hmm.
just because she is the one who gave the rule. Why do you think that we get to a point where we believe that people expect things that they've never vocalized?
So I think when you've placed a certain pressure on yourself, right? It's almost inevitable for you to, because you start projecting, right? You
Right.
start projecting because this is a standard that you've set for yourself so high, right? And now you're like, because it's unacceptable to me as well, because of
Yes.
the expectation that has been set, you become so sure that even the next person is not going to understand, because already you are judging yourself. So now you're projecting that if I'm feeling this way, what more the person who actually taught me about this principle, she's not going to
Exactly.
understand. So it's really a projection issue more than a reality issue. Yeah.
No, I have to agree with you. It's the fact that because you were given a rule beforehand,
Yeah.
or it has been preached for you for a long time, you have
Mm-hmm.
set the standard for yourself, and so
Yeah.
you're judging yourself. And when
Mm-hmm.
you've judged other people before that have also been
Yes.
empowered, it
Yes.
makes it even harder for you to forgive
Yes.
yourself, because
Mm.
you're like,
I've just
I
become like that
did
person.
this.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
so it becomes a projection. Okay,
Mm.
so we want to know more. You've
Mm.
decided you want to kill yourself. What then happens?
So what happens is I actually go to, so on this day a lot of drama had happened. I can't really get into it because of our time, and I'm just like, okay, fine, I'm going to die. This is the day that I die. Nobody's going to hear me, nobody's going to understand, and let me save them the shame. Let me also save myself the shame of somebody wanting to be with me in the future, and I tell them that I've been deflowered, and let me
Mm,
solve myself from this pain that I'm going through of being rejected. So I actually remember that I was crying, and I woke up to this guy who was selling red poison. And I think I wrote about it at some point, that I don't understand what was going on in this guy's mind, because here I was all in tears, and I said I want to buy some red poison, and dude gave me like, he was like, okay, how many packs do you want? And
what what's that? What is it about red poison? I mean, like, I'm so far, is this is the third or fourth story that I've heard, and everyone who's attempted, they've tried with red poison. It's like,
okay, so you know, when I was preparing for this talk, I was contemplating in my mind if I should mention this, if I should mention the poison that I attempted to commit suicide with, because I only got to know about it because somebody had committed
tried.
suicide. They had tried,
Okay.
if you get what I mean. So it almost feels like I'm empowering somebody that if they get into this space, they already know the plug, if that makes sense. But that's
Yes, I
not my
hear you.
intention. Yeah. So for me, it was just because there was a success story. So I knew that person in my hood that I had judged, by the way,
Yes,
when she actually passed on, I was like, who does that?
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
like you mentioned earlier, because I never understood. It only took me to get into that space of, wow, I think I can't do this anymore.
Mm,
That I thought, oh, but she committed suicide. They say she
mm,
used red poison, so I'm gonna do the same. It worked for
yeah,
her. It will surely work for me. So
yeah.
I'm in front of this dude. I'm buying my red poison. He gives me the red poison. He didn't even bother to ask if I was okay or anything. I think he just needed the money.
Yeah.
So yeah, I get home, and funny enough, I call my friend. Right, I'm like, dude, I'm about to die. I'm about to commit suicide. And then I think it was, and she's like, why? I'm like, a guy dumped me. Oh, he's cheating on me, and he's chosen the other girl over me. And then she says to me, okay, cool. Come to my house. Come to my house, take the poison, and come to my house. And I'm like, cool. So I literally put the poison in a glass, and I start taking it whilst walking to her house. And
The
by the
story,
time
though.
by the time that I get to her place, I then just became unconscious. I just collapsed. And I remember her screaming and the neighbor coming through and giving me some milk. And I vomited. And then I just went unconscious. Um, and I stayed in the hospital. And around that time, the doctors in Zimbabwe, they were on strike. And so we had to go 40 kilometers, because I stay in Northern, that's 40 kilometers from Harare. So we had to go to Harare. And on the way, they say that they had a breakdown. And by the time that they get there, by the grace of God, they managed to preserve my life. And the shame that
Now
comes,
you have shame that you tried to kill yourself.
the shame, realizing that you didn't actually die. Because I remember when I was working, I was like, okay, so am I in heaven? Where am I? And then I start seeing all these machines, and I'm like, oh flip, it didn't work. And and now seeing my mom, and the worst thing in my story, I don't know if it's a blessing in disguise really, I had written letters where I was explaining everything that had happened
Oh my
and
God.
why I was taking away my life. So it was almost like the worst thing that the worst thing that I was trying to avoid was happening. I knew that she had read the letters, and now I'm also here. I've tried to kill myself. So it's like double trouble.
Mm.
And but she's looking at me, and the only thing I could see from her face was love and worry that she wanted me to get better.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And that reaction shook you. Did you
it did.
did it make you feel less shame, or it just made you feel more ashamed?
It made me feel more ashamed, because at first I didn't understand why. I
Okay.
thought like, okay, maybe she's being nice in front of the doctors. But after this, she's going to rain on me because my mom
Yeah,
was a
yeah.
disciplinarian. So I'm like, after this, it's going to get hectic. But no, when I, and this is now the first time that I then got to learn about therapy and stuff. And it was a conversation that we never really used to have back in the time. So we were given a chance to go into therapy,
Yeah.
herself and I, and the therapist, to just have a conversation about what had happened and how I had found myself in there. And I remember her just saying the one thing that hurt her the most was the fact that I thought she was not going to, I thought that
Understand.
she valued my virginity more than my life.
Oh. Wow,
Yeah,
that is profound. I
yeah,
mean, as a child, you don't
yeah,
even think about that because
yeah,
you're thinking about yourself. But
yes,
a parent, when they're giving you a rule or a law, they're not to say if you break it, you're dead to me.
die,
But
yeah,
somehow we take
yeah,
it that way, and
yeah,
I feel like thank God you survived it and are telling us the tale of what happened, because now we can understand what goes through the mind of a parent whose
yeah,
child is trying to take out their lives. And
yeah,
at the same time, we want to know how then you get over that, because
yeah,
I feel just by hearing your story now that it might get worse for you, because
yeah.
if you thought you had shame before, now
Yeah,
you have shame.
now you have shame.
Yeah.
And for me, it was hard. It was hard in the sense that, okay, so this is my first time in a therapy set up. I'm sitting there, and this lady is asking me to tell her why I tried to commit suicide, right?
Mm.
And the only thing that I knew about counseling back then, we used to say, oh no, they've gone for counseling, was if you go for an HIV test and you test positive, then they
You go
will,
for
you
counseling,
go
yeah.
for counseling. So we didn't have conversations around mental health, as we are doing now. So I felt like maybe I'm nuts, I'm crazy, because
Mm.
why are we having this conversation? In as much as she tried to make me understand that she wanted to help, I wasn't really forthcoming in those sessions. I think the
Mm.
more that we had sessions, that's when I so what I understood was I wasn't going to leave the hospital until I was forthcoming. And that
Yes.
was the only reason why
Reason why you started.
I started opening up. And the hardest part was after I left the hospital, and now I went back I went back home, and realizing that everybody knew that I tried to commit
Yes.
suicide. I remember on our way back, my mom saying to me, so this is going to be hard for you because some people actually thought you died.
Okay.
So um, I, so she was just trying to prepare me for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now she's also saying, it's okay if you don't want to go back to church. Like just trying to make me feel loved and understood, and going back to the community, and now everybody in the ghetto knows that, you know, you have been, why you wanted to die. You wanted to die over a guy, so obviously you've been intimate with this guy. And now
So now
mothers,
you have told everyone your story.
pretty much. And the worst for me, the worst was the fact that my friends that I had, their mothers would not allow them to associate with me anymore, because
Mm,
I had become the black. It's, you know, if you know the story of Job in the Bible, where he says, "My greatest
yeah,
fear befell me," it was exactly that. So the very
yeah.
thing that I wanted to die for was now happening,
Was not
and
a reality.
it was it was hard. But I think, if you were to ask me what helped me through that process, as my family,
Mm,
my family, I we did not talk about it. Okay, because I think this conversations have always been a taboo. I don't
yes,
remember after outside the hospital having the actual conversation, or my dad asking me, because he then came to see me, what happened.
yes,
There was just this um love that I was receiving. So it was a matter of, okay, let's not talk about it. Let's just
yes.
brush it under the carpet, but we love you.
Mm. We
So
we're going to say we understand by not talking about it.
by not talking about it. So we
Okay.
never spoke about it. Even up to now, we never had the conversation. It became that story that is not to be talked about
To be talked about.
until, yeah, until I decided to start talking about it recently. But guys, how
Yes.
did you really feel about it? But then no, we didn't talk about it. And it was journaling, writing, and talking to my one friend, the one I had gone to when I was actually in the process of trying, that helped me to go through the process.
Wow. So Precious, I picked up a lot of things while you were telling the story. The first one
Mm,
being the stigma around therapy and
mm,
being nuts actually
yeah,
stops people in general from being able to open up, especially in the
true.
Black community. It's something that we've
Yeah,
always said, talked about, but we see it very real in a child's life. Someone who has not
yeah,
even been exposed to that much stigma anyway. You
yeah.
still felt that it would be
Mm,
kind of difficult to talk to someone until you were forced to do it for you to leave the hospital. And I
yeah,
think that for everyone that's listening right now, it's something that we need to be very conscious about, because if we are not intentionally making it okay for people around
yeah.
us to look at therapy as something that helps and not something that they need to be ashamed of, we are going to
Mhm.
be we are going to leave people vulnerable to
Yeah,
suicide or depression because they
absolutely.
can't
Yeah,
go there. So
yeah,
we if we want to help each other, we have to
mm,
make each other, before we get into difficult situations,
yeah,
feel comfortable enough to think of therapy and to
yeah,
look at therapy as something that's just like going to the ice cream shop or going to
yeah.
get a
Or just
McDonald's
going
and
for
stuff,
regular checkups. Yeah.
right? Because
Mm,
I see that it was
mm.
very difficult for you.
It
And
was
then the
very
second
difficult. Mm.
yeah, and the second thing that you mentioned that is very important right now is that we do not want to address the elephant in the
Oh,
room.
we
The
don't.
family is aware that there must have been something very difficult that you had to go through for you to get
Yeah,
to a suicidal point.
yeah.
But then because they know it was so big, you'd think
Hmm.
that they would want to then talk about it and make sure you
Yeah.
don't get there again, but
Again.
they're too
Yeah.
afraid to push
Yeah.
you over the edge,
Yes.
that they would rather just give you or shower you with love and tell you, you know
Mm.
what, we always got us. But
Yeah.
I feel that you were lucky in that you also had someone to talk to. You did get a bit of therapy, but
Yeah.
there's some people that end up going back to the same cycle because
Yeah.
no one
And it's
addressed.
very easy.
Yeah.
It's very easy to fall into that space again, because
Mm,
in as much as people are showering you with love, but there's a wall that you have created, right?
right.
Because I mean, the conversation that you want to have in that moment is, how are you really feeling?
Yes.
Um how are you dealing with all this? But if we just put everything under the rug, shove it under the rug, we're not really helping the situation. But I think one of the things that I really would want to just mention is that, um, the thing that the main cause that okay, in my case, and what I've identified in other people's stories as well, is that the main cause why people end up getting to this place of, let me just end my life, is because they feel that no one is going to understand. So they're not even willing to share, because even if I tell you, Angie, you're going to judge me. So we are so afraid of judgment, or we're so afraid of being misunderstood, that we're just like, what's the point?
Yeah.
So I think if
There's
there's, yeah,
there's
so
less relatable stories.
yes. So I think if there's anything that anyone should take away from this conversation is, you don't have to feel overwhelmed on your own. You don't have to. And the moment that you start having these thoughts that you can't share with the next person, or the moment
Mm,
that you feel like the next person is not going to understand, nobody rather is going to understand you, then you might be slowly, sliding into that hole of depression. If you feel that your circle is going to judge you, maybe based on values and beliefs or religion, then rather go to a professional. But the
yeah,
most important thing is, don't be stuck alone with your own thoughts.
right.
Because in
Because you're
that
feeling
case,
isolated and you're feeling
yes,
like your story is unique, which is
yes,
I feel right there, because like I wanted to also just bring back the fact that I also had suicidal thoughts, and I wanted to
mm,
actually find out from you
mm,
uh what you thought was going to, did you have like an elaborate plan for the people that are staying behind? Was there
mm.
thought around how they're going to feel? Oh my God, we just lost Precious. I think she's going to join. She had break up for her data, so let's hope she joins us just now. But what I was trying to ask her now is basically something that I went through when I was having suicidal thoughts. It was very direct. I would think about everyone. I'd think about my best friends. I'd think about my mom, and I would realize that I'm going to hurt them, right? I would realize that this is not going to sit well with them. So probably I would have to write a letter or whatever. And I feel bad for it. But what was the problem was that there was an overpowering need to make the person who was making me feel sad see the pain that they were causing me. So it's more about how you feel unseen. It's more about how you feel like no one can relate. No, you cannot explain yourself. So that need to have somebody see it is overpowering, and it makes you feel that you feel like suicide is the only option that you have. Precious is back. Yay.
I'm
Hi,
sorry
Precious.
about that. I don't know what's happening with my network.
No problem. I was just telling everyone how
Mm,
I was asking you that what was your thought process around how other people would feel about your suicide. And my story, I realized that it was more important for
mm,
me to tell, or for me to work on showing the world what they couldn't see. Like you were saying, you're
mm,
thinking what you are going through is something that no one can relate to.
mm,
You're thinking that even if you try to explain it, no one would understand you, but you still have the longing for people to understand.
mm,
So the suicide becomes the expression of whatever you were trying to say, and you feel like it has more impact than whatever you would have to bring to the table.
mm,
So, for example, I knew my mom would be sad. I was sad about it, but it was more important for me to say to my ex, um, well, look how badly you hurt me. This is exactly how you hurt me.
ah,
And that is what I was going
mm,
to leave with him. And that was going
mm,
to be his story to tell. But if you look at it, it doesn't make sense, but it makes sense to the victim because all they want to do is to speak out. So I wanted to
mm.
know on your story, what did you feel needed to be said after you were gone, and who needed to hear it?
If I'm to be honest, I didn't even think about the pain that my family was going to go through. I think in that moment, I was just so selfish, if I can call it that way, that
Yeah,
the like you, I wanted to send across a message to my ex that you hurt me,
right.
and now look, I have nothing to live for because you were in my world. So yeah, and there's no life without you, pretty much. So I would rather just die. So
Right.
everything else, I think if I had thought about the pain that my sister and my brother and my mom were going to feel after I was gone, maybe that was going to give me a reason not to. But no, the dominant thought was, he needs to know that you hurt me. And I
Mm.
also want him, and I think it was really, I want him to
To feel
face
the pain.
yeah, and the blame. I wanted him to face the blame, if I can put it that way. That
Mm.
now that I've left this later, my family is going to go to him and say, you're the reason. So I
So
wanted him to take
it's also
accountability.
vengeance in a way.
Yes, I wanted him to take accountability for hurting me, and I couldn't think of any other way.
Yeah, and I think from that, what I take away from that, if anyone is learning anything from this story, is that we put so much power in other people when
Yeah,
we've not had self love built in us at a younger age.
absolutely.
So
Yeah,
what I heard from your story is you had daddy issues to begin with,
yeah,
and we were last week we were talking about how that relationship with your father is just the most important one, really.
it's so
and and
important.
when you are robbed of it and the love that you're supposed to get from that man, you
Mm,
are functioning from a place of fear, and you give everything control to somebody
mm.
who probably doesn't
Yeah,
deserve it. Yeah.
yeah, because
So
you're pretty much looking for validation from this
right.
person. You want that protection that comes from a father. You want to be seen. You've never experienced this love, and it makes it so difficult when you start receiving that kind of a love from somebody else. So
Yeah.
you give them naturally, you give them so much power than you're
Yeah.
supposed to. Mm.
Let's bring everybody into the conversation. I think I wanted to ask guys, have you ever had any suicidal thoughts or attempts? What
Mm.
happened? Have you had a relative or friend, loved
Mhm.
one that has gone through it? What were the lessons there? How do we help people that are going through those situations? We've
Mm.
already identified one, which is first of all, we need to make sure that that we talk about it. We do not ignore the fact that it
Mhm.
happened. We need to
Mhm.
talk about it. And first and secondly, we need to make sure that
Mm.
it is not a stigma. There's no stigma
Yeah, we
around going to see a
demystify it.
therapist.
Mm.
Right. And yeah, and we need to just be very intentional and attentive in the formative
Mm.
years of our children, so that they don't have that attachment issue of
Yeah,
of of feeling that they need validation from people, and so that they have self-love. They know that when they're rejected, it's not about them, it's about
yeah.
the other person.
The other
um
person. Yeah.
yeah, and projecting is real precious. Like
It
when
is.
you judgment, I'm writing a blog, guys, please watch
Mm.
out for it. It's
Mm.
about judgment, and
Mm.
definitely what you said is,
Mm.
when you've been judging,
Yeah.
especially when you've judged directly somebody who's done it, it
Hmm.
becomes harder for you to forgive yourself, to
Extend grace to
find
yourself.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yes,
You can't.
because
You cannot.
you create this standard for yourself based
Yeah.
on no context at all,
Mm.
that you have to meet. And
Mm.
because you judge someone harshly, you feel that it's not fair for you to now be lenient with yourself.
Yeah.
And because society, in what we're teaching our children, is while we're sitting in the living room watching TVs, oh, that child from next door, she got pregnant, so we judge her. Before you know it, you're also judging somebody, and things just go crazy. So guys, Precious is back. Precious, internet
It's
is
really
not our
acting
friend.
up. It's
But
really
yeah,
acting
we
up.
let's hear what our friends and family are saying.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder who this is. She says, "Ish, these things happen to more people than I thought. I attempted at 16 at boarding school. The shame was horrible. The nicknames too. Even
Mm-hmm.
today, some people remember me because of that
Because of that
incident."
incident. That is so true. I also have people. I think when I shared my first experience of talking about this issue publicly, I put up a blog post, and I remember getting a lot of messages in my inbox of people telling me how they perceived me uh, based on that experience, because I sort of gave an account of what had actually happened in my blog. And it's funny how when you attempt to take your life, you just become this um, villain, I don't know, or this disturbed person. um, Everybody stops understanding that they also have issues, but you become that person who's got so many issues. And yeah.
So you become the scapegoat, really.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to ask this the person who said this comment that these names that you're being called, are these names because you attempted suicide? And if so, I'm wondering why people feel that they need to label a person who's tried to commit suicide in a bad way, when we should be feeling sorry for them, because clearly there was something that was too heavy for them to carry.
Oh, Angeline, can I just jump in whilst we are waiting for the person to respond?
Yeah.
In my experience, people are not going to feel sorry for you. Your family is going to feel sorry for you if you're lucky. In my case, they did. Or maybe they did because my mom had gone through therapy and she had been taught on how to handle the situation. But I remember the Sunday that I went to church, right after the incident. Nobody wanted to be associated with me. I
Hmm.
became the black sheep of the community. Do you get it?
Yes.
It was so hard for me that I couldn't even go back to school because I just felt like, no, man. E- Even in the community where I was staying, people were looking at me differently. Or maybe it was also now the perception that I had because I had this thing at the back of my head. But I
Nah, I
remember,
don't think so.
yeah, but I remember that nobody came to say, "Oh, wow, Presh, we had," because everybody knew, but nobody
Yeah.
came to say, so how you doing?
Hmm.
How you feeling? Oh, I'm so sorry that you had to go through that. No. And
Right.
also maybe because back then it wasn't a conversation that people were having. You get it?
Right.
Now we talk about mental health. Now we know that if somebody tries to commit suicide, then definitely they're going through something. But if you are in high school, people are going to mock you about it. They
Hmm.
they're going to laugh about it. And it's just the sad reality of um, the communities that we are part of. But I think if there are people who are watching who
We've lost
tries
Precious,
to
but
commit suicide, what I'm just saying here is they need love. You don't have to ask them exactly what happened or anything, but just to acknowledge that you understand, or you don't have to understand either, but you see them, and you
we're there for
feel
them.
for them. You're there for them. Yeah.
Yeah, because for me, it's very apparent that trying to attempt suicide is clearly a mental illness, right? There's
Yeah.
depression associated with it. There's stress, and yes, we were not talking about it as a disease then, but right
Mm.
now, what I think is our mandate as people that are now becoming woke and learning about self love is that we need to be very intentional about making sure that our children and the people around us understand that suicide is not an attention seeking issue. We've just said a
It's not.
response here. Someone says, I
Mm.
think the stigma that's attached to suicide, people would then see you as tainted and attention seeking.
Attention. Yeah.
And that makes
Mhm.
it makes so much sense that people actually think you're trying to cause problems
Yeah.
instead of coming to help you and offering
Yeah.
you the support you need. they make
Mhm.
they make it harder for you to even survive. And if,
Yeah.
if anything, if your parents or your family doesn't take your side or aren't loving, you might be
Mm.
pushed to do it again you
Yeah.
know
So true.
so So I think we need to all get all get off our high horses. If we've never
Mm.
gone through situations where we have felt very isolated or felt alone, we shouldn't be judging other people's
Mm.
harshly, because when it happens to us or even our
Yeah.
children, we might judge them harshly
Mm.
and miss the opportunity to help them out of
Yeah, so
depression.
true. So,
Yeah.
so
So there's
true.
another comment here.
Mm.
It's someone is just responding, so I'm guessing that first comment was Rumbi, but I might be
Mm.
wrong.
Mm.
It really does, Rumbi. My first attempt was at 10 years old. I didn't even understand life then, but I just wanted to end it, and there were
Wow.
many other attempts after that too.
Wow. That is so deep. That is so deep. You know, I was reading this article that there are 25 people committing suicide in every 40 seconds.
That is a sad statistic.
Yeah, it's crazy. So and I'm thinking it's 10 years old, maybe you don't even understand what's going on in life. Like you're saying, she didn't even understand life, but she just wanted to end it. And maybe the bigger conversation now becomes, we don't need to wait for us to start understanding things to take our children to therapy. you know
Yes.
Sometimes you just need to sit them down with somebody that they are free to talk to, or constantly have conversations with them. How are you doing? How are you really feeling? What's going on with you? Because people are dying, and this is just not a conversation that we're having because it's cute to have, but it's
Yeah,
real. It's so
it's
real.
very real. And it's actually it blew my mind just hearing someone say they tried to commit suicide at 10.
And
And
yeah,
I would like to know more about their thought processes there.
yeah, me
But what
too.
but what but what I know is definitely I had some problems in primary school. And if,
Wow.
I never got to the point of suicide. I got to a point
Mhm.
of I just needed to end primary school so that I can reinvent myself, right? But
Wow.
at the same time, I'm like, how do you how do you not see that your child or your friend is going through depression or stress? What is it that as humans we are failing to do for each other
Hmm.
to recognize that? That is my biggest question, considering what we've just heard now, that at 10 years someone had already started attempting. I'm sure if they did it again, it means either when people found out, they didn't do anything much to help them speak up, and they didn't know how. So
Hmm.
what is it that we're doing
Yeah,
wrong? What do
I
you
think
think?
it goes back to what I just said now, that I don't remember at any point when I was growing up where I sat down, or maybe with my mom, and she was just asking me, but really, how are you? How is school? How are you
Mm,
being treated? Did anybody say anything to you that you didn't like? Did anybody say something to you that is hurtful? Um, did anybody bully you? Do you know what bullying is? Do you know those kind of conversations? I think if we start having cultivating those kind of conversations, because many a
mm,
times I'm thinking at that age it's probably something very external, something that somebody said or something that somebody did, and now you're feeling, oh my gosh, I can't fit in, or I'm too dark. Some people in my class were laughing at me because I'm too dark, or they were laughing at me because I'm too short. Now you feel like I don't want to
yeah.
be part of this class anymore, but you can't really go to your teacher and say I don't want to be part of the class, so I'm gonna die instead. But if you are having those conversations with your parents, or if your parents are creating that platform where you can share what's actually happening with you, we don't have to wait until we start seeing the triggers to find out what's happening with our kids. I think in
Mm,
in school, or let's just make it a habit of wanting to know, are you really okay? What's happening to you? You seem, I remember my mom saying she's just so moody, and
yeah.
maybe I would have
Yeah.
really gone through the worst day at school, and I just
Right.
want you to ask about my day. And
Mm.
but you have just concluded that you are a child. What issues can you
A
have?
moody
We are just
child. Yeah.
looking. Yeah, you've got school uniform, you've got food on your table. You have to be grateful, pretty much. But
Yes. Do you
be
know?
concerned about my, yeah.
because as parents, I just wanted to say, as parents, I think that they have a problem, or we have a problem as parents
Yeah,
of projecting the issues or the problems that we had when we were younger. So, for
yeah,
example, we have different generational primary school problems.
absolutely.
If
Yeah.
their problems were I don't have lunch to go when I will go to school and I have to walk to school, they
Mm,
feel that because you don't have that barrier, then you
mm.
shouldn't have any problems. So, as
Exactly.
parents,
Yeah.
I feel we have to be intentional about understanding what the new problems are for this generation
Yes. Because
because
our
they
kids
can't.
right now, they are being bullied on social media. We don't know how that looks like, you
We
know.
don't.
So we really
Yes.
need to start moving with the times. I love that. Yeah.
Yes,
I
and
love
also
that.
we can't. There's no one who can be as woke as knowing what the problems for their firstborn child would be when they go to primary school. So you need to
Mm.
be to immerse yourself, like you were saying, in their
Yeah.
lives and be
Yeah.
attentive and also be intentional about the responsibility that you have to cultivate self love in them. I talked
Yeah.
about this in. It was actually even mind blowing to me that how come I'm only starting to talk about self love now? Like I'm
Mm.
hearing a lot of people talking about it, but what did our parents have to do to get me there before? Now we are sort of like doing a retrospect in our lives and then saying self love.
Mm.
But what can we do
Mm.
before to prevent us
Mm.
falling first to realize we need to love ourselves? What are our parents' responsibilities in terms of
Mm.
telling a child to love themselves first, to choose themselves, and to be authentic in the way they show up, in like being honest about their feelings and confronting their feelings? What can we do? I think that is the
It
biggest
really go
thing.
Yeah, I think it really goes back. I'm such a big fan of conversation, you know.
Mm,
um Maybe because I was never really affirmed, and I think that in the generation of the kids that we have now, I think they are being affirmed, because most parents now, like you were saying, they are learning from what they were lacking when they are younger. So I
yes,
think there has actually been a shift, in terms of affirming children, in the children of nowadays and our generation. That gap, I feel like it's being bridged. But to answer your question, it's really just making sure that your child knows that their value is not based on anything that anybody external, projects on them.
yes,
They are fully loved, they are accepted, and telling them that they are beautiful all the time, just
yeah, and
shower.
handsome.
And handsome, yes, and handsome, yeah, and handsome, and telling them they're intelligent, telling them they are well able, they are strong, and so when we equip them like that, when they're come, I believe that a child who's living a household where they are fully affirmed, even if somebody says that to them at school, "You're so ugly," she can easily say, "But my mom tells me that I'm beautiful."
Yeah,
It's
and that's
it's
okay.
yeah. So, and that's okay. So
Yeah.
I think it goes back to how we communicate with our children, really.
Yeah, we have to also. So this is why we are doing work on ourselves so that we can
Mm.
become better parents. So let's go back to the
Yeah.
comment section. Um,
Hmm.
we have a comment here. Someone says, "This is so powerful. I'm actually realizing that suicide is caused by your need to be heard,
Right.
and
Yeah.
death becomes the only solution to draw attention."
Yeah.
I can relate to this one.
Mm.
I can relate to this one. I don't think it's an everyone's thing, but
Yeah.
most of us do
Some of
inherently
us. Yeah.
just
Yeah.
want to be heard.
We heard.
And
Yeah.
it's not the attention that people would look at and say, "Oh, you're just an attention seeker." There's a
Yeah.
deeper underlying issue that has
Mm.
not been talked about, that has been
Mm.
ignored by society, that someone needs to be given, attention to, so that they can actually
Yeah.
say it out loud and help others.
Like, I feel like you're not understanding the intensity of what I'm saying. So in order for me to
Yeah,
prove to you what I'm actually saying, I'm gonna die so that you get it. It's
you get it.
yeah,
You
that
get that
kind of
emotional abuse
yeah.
is real. You
Yeah.
know, it's not my
Exactly.
imagination. I tried to
Yes.
explain it. No one
Mm,
understood. But when I die,
mm,
you're going to see
mm.
how serious this issue is.
Yeah.
You know, and
Mm,
and and so we the person who's on the other hand only has that, and they can only get out of that if they get the attention in terms of people who are willing to just say, you don't have to explain it, we don't have
Yeah.
to understand, but
Yeah.
we are
We
here.
hear you. Yeah. We
We are
hear you.
here. We're going to walk this journey with you.
With
All
you.
right.
Yeah.
Someone says it is also seen as an escape. What do you think about that?
As in, suicide is an escape. It is an
Yeah.
escape because you're just like, I'm done here. Y'all are not willing to hear me. You're not willing to understand me, so I'm out. It is an escape.
Yeah, and also that this comment for me is very, very important because it speaks to what we're doing here. These
Yeah.
taboo topics, we all know about them, right?
Yeah.
We know about them in our
Yeah.
African culture,
Yeah.
and we're saying that we want to talk or give an account of these taboo topics so that they stop being taboo. We need to
Yeah. We want to
demystify them.
demystify them. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
because the reason why people are killing themselves or even having suicidal thoughts and being depressed is because they're not talking to anyone.
Yeah.
They are trying to resolve their issues alone and failing
Yeah.
dismally. And
Mm-hmm.
and because we don't want to be uncomfortable talking about our children's virginity, who might be a father who's
Yeah.
raised, you
Mm.
know, we don't
Yeah.
want to talk about an abortion. We do not want to talk about this or
We
that,
don't. Yeah.
but it's things, even rape, a brother raping a sister.
Mm.
We don't want to talk about that
We
because
don't
it
want
will
to,
rock
but
the
these
boat and
things
shake.
happen. Yeah.
But if it
Mm.
has already happened in your family, the only way for your family to heal and not be affected by that occurrence again is for you to talk about it. But
Yeah.
we seem to, or we tend to gravitate towards not saying anything and just bombarding each other with love, which for me
Yeah.
now seems like love bombing and can be
It
emotionally
is love
abusive also.
bombing. And you taught me about that word.
Yeah, it's
Mm.
like the family is like, we know we let you down, but let's just love bomb you,
Let's just
you know,
love you, let's
and then
just
and
pile
then
up
we can
love on
leave
top of this thing.
and then it's gonna resolve everything. But then we
But
haven't
it
done it.
doesn't. But we really need to understand that it doesn't. It's like applying makeup on a skin that you're not taking good care of. It
Yes,
just worsens the situation. So we really need to start going to the core of issues. We cannot, especially in this generation, we cannot be people that just, put on foundation, just cover it up. It will not go away.
I know this. Oh my God, profound. Another comment here is, as a parent, if you are going through depression yourself and you have no self-actualization, you might not even realize that your child might be going through that too. Wow.
Wow, that is dear.
Wow, Precious. This is where we're going. We're going to be
Mhm.
parents soon,
Yeah,
and it's very difficult. I think it's good that we are even in the season where we are trying to understand and know ourselves, because
yeah,
imagine
yeah.
those parents that were parents before they knew
Mm.
self-love and the journey and all of that. You're going through
Yeah.
your own things and your child is also going through their own things. What
Mm.
happens?
Yeah, because if you're in this space, I think you can only give from a cup that is full, really.
Mm,
So
mm,
if I like what they're saying, if I'm going through the suicidal thoughts, right, and maybe hypothetically speaking, it's coming from a place of not understanding my value, right? There is
mm,
no way that I am going to go to my child and start teaching them about self-love and value and how to value themselves, because
mm.
I already don't have that. So it is true that if, as a parent, I'm already struggling with this thing, it's almost it's very possible that my child would be going through that, and I just won't know how to assist them.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow,
Wow.
that's true.
Okay. Someone was agreeing with Precious. Yes, Precious. Most of us, growing up, we didn't have that friendship and closeness with our parents, and so it
Mm.
was difficult to open up.
To open up,
Uh,
so true.
and someone is echoing. No one taught our parents about this too.
That
It's
is
so
so
true.
true. That is,
It is so true.
I was actually learning about something about that, that sometimes we really, we want to raise this bar so high for our parents, but they were also just learning like we are now. So all this
Yes.
is not to say that they did a terrible job. I mean, they were really
No.
good at certain things. They were also not aware. And this, like we're saying, this conversations, they were not being cultivated back then. So we're just saying we understand that they did not have a chance to have these conversations, but we are here. So let us have more of this conversation so that we can equip generations to come.
To come. I actually also love this statement because it is for people that have gone through what we've gone through is very healing. Because
Yeah.
if you start here and then maybe you want to do more research on their childhood, you would actually be more empathetic to your
Yeah.
parents and more
Yeah.
forgiving, because
Absolutely.
yes, while they might have contributed to this position that you're in your life, because it wasn't intentional, there's no need
Yeah.
for you to carry bitterness and resentment that will still eat
Yeah.
you up and cause ripple
Exactly.
effects, right? We are supposed to be empowered enough to release our past with love, to understand. If you start from this place, you can understand that our parents did the best they could, but our parents right now, what they also need to be taught is that they have to allow us to have the conversations, because some parents become defensive.
Absolutely.
They become
Absolutely. And
defensive to say,
mm,
I did the best I could. Yes, we know, but
yeah, we
doesn't mean that
know.
it was the best
Mm,
way to raise a child. So if you
yeah.
don't accept it, what are you going to teach your grandchildren? What are you going
Absolutely.
to learn from your situation and how to
Mm,
change? Because you still
yeah.
parent people in your community and
Yeah.
etc. So
And
it's
I think on that, I really thank my mom that she has extended grace for me to be able to talk about this, because when it comes to a topic like this, really, you get to a place of understanding that in as much as it's your story,
yeah,
um, your family is also involved. I think I mentioned her a lot in this conversation. And I
yes,
remember it was also very difficult for me the very first time that I did a podcast talking about my suicide attempt story, and she was there with me. I intentionally did it whilst she was there because we had never spoken about the issue. And
right.
um, she was really forthcoming. And I'm like, wow, woman, thank you. Thank you
That
for
is
allowing me
nice.
to yeah, it's important that they release us to have those conversations, because they
It's
really help generations to come.
honestly, like, I wish if my ex could even want to come on the podium with me and talk about our situation. I think it would help a lot of people, including him, I think. I don't know,
Absolutely.
but I think
Absolutely.
if we could have an experience, we should
Mm.
acknowledge that each person in the experience had their own perception of it,
And
and we
they've
can,
got a,
right.
yeah, yes, yes, they've got,
Yes,
and you may be, I remember just, and this is unrelated, when I had to sit down with my ex, just getting closure about what had happened. You, I had this version of my own story, but just getting closure from them or just having that conversation helped me to realize that maybe I'm
mm,
the one with the tainted side of the story. So it's really important that we also bring other parts that are involved in those stories, so that
mm.
we can get
We
to
can understand
understand
the
their
full
thought
picture
process exactly of what really
happen.
happened. Yeah.
Especially for people outside that are trying to learn from our stories and outside,
Yes.
it's
Yes.
there shouldn't be a bias of this is my version, but every version counts because you don't know who you're
Yeah.
going to encounter. You just
Yeah.
need to be open to understanding the other party, when
And
how they
also,
experienced it as well.
yes, and also just understanding that their feelings and whatever they are saying they have encountered in the journey matters.
It's valid,
It's
yeah.
valid. Yeah.
Okay, another point, comment, understand new problems. Yes, double clicking on that. We should
Mm,
understand new problems so that we
yeah.
can help the people in need. Um, most of our parents take this as a spiritual thing because that's what they know. In Zim, do you know how a suicidal death is treated? it's considered a bad omen. That's the culture that educated our parents. This is a whole different dimension to the
Oh, and
topic.
that is so true. That is so, so true. Because I remember that somebody came to our home and they're like, you know what? She needs to be delivered from the spirit of suicide.
Yeah,
We need to pray it away. You cannot pray away mental health. You can't. But
yeah,
yeah, that's the reason why we are having this conversation so that, we actually demystify the whole thing, in as much as maybe there's some level of spirituality attached to it. I don't know. But many times people commit suicide because there is something that is troubling them that they are not talking about
yeah.
and that they need to express.
Yes, I think
Yeah.
in that regard, I would like to say my thoughts in that is that definitely the devil likes suicide, right?
Yeah.
It's the spirituality of it. People have noticed it because the devil will double click on your issues with
Yeah.
society so that you can get to the death. But at the
Yeah.
same time, praying alone without action will never get anyone anywhere, right? So
Yeah.
what you need to do is recognize that there's going to be the devil whispering the negative to the person or the victim who's undergoing depression. But what needs to happen is that they have to be equipped, they have to be helped on a
Yeah.
physical, and
Yeah.
and and then we also pray, because if we're just going to be religious and ignore the actual issue, we are not going to help each other.
Yeah. And we'll keep losing our children because,
We keep
yeah.
losing our children. The second from last comment is that I don't think it's fair to blame our parents. We, of course, as young parents, are more exposed to these talks. Somebody needs to take these topics to our parents who aren't on social media. I
Mm,
think we managed to talk about this one in depth
yeah.
as well, that definitely no blame should go to our parents. In fact, when we talk about these things, we need to be, we as children, we need to be speaking the truth in love, but
Mm.
we cannot not say the truth. If
Yeah. We
your
cannot
your
not say the truth. Yeah.
if your mom predisposed you to abuse because she was abusive, it is the truth and cannot be changed. But
Yeah.
we cannot not say it because it's be respectful. But
Yeah.
the thing is, we say it out of from a place of love, where we are not
Yeah.
saying now you become the worst mom in the world, no. But
Yeah.
to say this is how I'm healing and this is how I would like for you to recognize your part in
Yeah.
it, so that maybe with somebody else you don't repeat the same
The
actions.
same thing.
Um,
Or if there's somebody else who's in the very same situation, they will know how to deal with it.
they will
So
also know how
yeah,
to
it's
advise,
not,
eh?
yeah, so it's not a blame game per se, but we are acknowledging that there's a problem. And what we're doing here is trying to find the best way of solving that problem.
Indeed,
Yeah.
indeed. And then our very last comment today, it has been a heated conversation. It's not exactly blaming though, Rumbi, but it's just trying to understand what drove us to do the things we did. And by knowing what the problem was, then we can now understand how to tackle
How
the
to
problem.
tackle it. Yeah, I love that.
No, I can't agree more. Yes, definitely, because we need to reprogram.
Mm,
Remember, we talked about if we are going to transform our mindsets and change our lives and become the best
yeah,
versions of ourselves, we
yeah.
need to go back to the thought processes that made us start to think the way we think. So if our parents are
Yes.
thinking suicide is spiritual and whoever is doing it is attention seeking, it might seem odd and unreasonable for them to think that for a person who is in this generation. But it's
Yeah,
because you didn't have to have someone bombarding those things or statements to you as you were growing up. So
yeah,
you cannot understand how they got to that thought process, and they have to
yeah.
do the work to undo that before they can get to the
Absolutely.
level. Yes.
Yes. So, so
So
true.
any last remarks, Precious, on depression, suicidal thoughts, your story, and how we can help each other?
Yeah, so I just want to double click on the fact that if you have something that is bothering you, I like I mentioned earlier on, I never thought that I would commit suicide. I was judging people who committed suicide back then. It only took me to be in a situation where I felt like I could not share what I was going through, that then led me to this place of wanting to commit suicide. So I really just want to encourage you not to bottle things up. If you're going through stuff, talk about it. Trust me, it's never as bad as it seems. There is always a way out. And I strongly believe that for as long as you are alive, God has a plan for you. And that plan is not to harm you, but to give you a good ending. So it might feel overwhelming, but find somebody to talk to. And maybe your solution is in the next person. You never know. Maybe they've actually gone through the very same thing that you're going through. So don't be that person who bottles things inside. You may not think that you're suicidal because it's not a constant thought process. It only takes that one moment of feeling overwhelmed and you find yourself on the other side.
Amen.
I think that would be all for me.
Oh, thank you so much, Precious, for saying that. It's totally true that it creeps up on you. It first of all, it feels like you're just toying around with the idea, but before you know it, you are actually trying to take pills, or you're actually contemplating jumping over a balcony. And I mean, those are things that happened for me, like from 0 to 100 on a normal day that I would have had, like a party with my friends, and then before I sleep, I have a suicidal thought. So let's be gracious with each other, and try not to be judgmental, but be a fair judge in that, like Christ, you have to understand, you have to tell the truth with grace. You cannot just say the truth without being gracious with the person, because you have not walked the path that they've walked. And it's not about the context, it's just about grace. We have to be gracious with each other. And so because of that, or based on that, I would also like to say that when you see somebody who's depressed, we are not professionals to determine how to help them. So you cannot tell them everything is going to be okay. You cannot promise them everything is going to be okay. You cannot tell them to step out of it as well. That's just going to push them over the edge. But you can promise to be there, so that if they're struggling to talk to you, your presence comforts them enough for them to open up to you.
Because
exactly, you don't need to love bomb. You do not need to force. You do not need to tell them what's unrealistic and promise things that you cannot deliver, because the mind is very the mind is very difficult to understand.
So true.
We just need to do the best that we can with the information that we have, and stay woke, and stay understanding, and stay sharing our relatable stories.
And I think also something that I would want to say before we go is, in your friendships, have real, authentic friendships where you just don't talk about the good stuff. I mean, find those friends that you can have real conversations with. I remember when Angie would go through her experience of wanting to jump off the balcony or taking pills, she would come the next day and say, Precious, so this is what happened. And I didn't have a solution for her, but just the fact that I was aware of what was happening with her. So the next time that thought would come back again, she would know, listen, I spoke to somebody about this. I'm not supposed to be doing this. So really have quality friendships where you are able to speak your mind. You're not always going to get the solutions, but at least you'd have let it all out.
Yes. So someone just double clicked on this. Authentic relationships are essential. I want to say being authentic is essential. If you are authentic, if you are authentic, you attract authentic people.
Authentic. Come on, somebody. I love that.
Yes, and you cannot expect authenticity from people if you are not it yourself. So we need to encourage each other to show up the way we are. And the only way you can do that, Precious, is accept people for who they are. We are not all on the same wavelength.
Absolutely. The way we and you're not trying to change nobody.
So if you love truly, allow people to be who you are.
Who they are.
Yes, thank you for endorsing that statement. that means everyone is on board. Let's be authentic and fleeting fingers. What do you say? Authentically.
Let's be authentic. Authenticity is key, darling.
Authenticity is key. So let's be real and stay sharing. Oh, Susie, oh, thank you so much. Oh, the queen of authenticity is
Oh,
here.
hi, Susie. She's the queen of authenticity. Oh, my goodness.
Authentically
She
you.
will force authenticity out of you. We love you, Sue.
Amen, sisters. Amen. So please, guys, let's show up who we are and learn from each other. Let's inspire each
Yeah.
other by just being who we are. And
Yes.
I wish you all a beautiful Sunday. Precious hugs, my friend. I love you so much. Thank you
I
for
love you too,
joining. And
Angel.
to the
Thank you for having
audience,
me.
Chipo, who's here, thank you so much for being in the studio with us. We love you. Cheers.
Thank you so much. Yes.